Hi, Christy.
Hi, Janet. How are you?
Doing good. How about you? Are we on? Are we live on Candy Camera?
Probably. I'm doing all right. We got tested positive for COVID, and although I was asymptomatic, my husband lost his taste. So we got put on, I'm calling it COVID house arrest.
Yeah, it's this mutation. It's just a rapid spread.
Yeah.
Uh, I have. I can't. I'm to the point where I can't count how many people in my family have have gotten it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So far so good.
Keep it that way. We were really lucky that, I mean, we had like, Justin had some cold symptoms and then
Yeah.
lost his taste. But as far as the grand scheme of possibilities go, we both really got away with very little issues, which is awesome. But it also
Right.
kind of stinks just being locked at home, waiting for nothing.
Well, um, consider it a long vacation. So who's
Yeah.
now is the Axiom open?
Yeah. Our
Like,
Sarah, our general manager, is taking care of everything,
okay.
and then along with our volunteers. So that's good.
Good job. Always got to have a plan B in the event.
Yeah, really. I like the pony behind you.
Oh, my horse.
Is that a
And it's supposed to be. I got it from an antique store. I haven't validated its authenticity.
You have to go on. What was that show that used to run on PBS? Oh,
Oh,
Antique Roadshow.
good idea. Jackie,
Yes, Janet?
are we live?
We are, yes.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Oroville City Council meeting of January 19th, 2021. Calling this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, may I have the roll?
Councilmember Pittman?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Councilmember Riggs?
Present.
Councilmember Hatley?
Here.
Councilmember Goodson?
Here.
Vice Mayor Thompson?
Here.
Mayor Reynolds?
Here. Will you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Goodson?
Yes.
Councilmember Riggs?
Yes.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
At this time, we're going to open the meeting up for public communications. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone from the public who wishes to comment?
Mr. Mayor, it looks like at the moment I have one speaker, the cameraman. If anyone else from the public would like to speak, please raise your hand or comment in the comment section so we can call on you next. The cameraman?
Yes.
Good evening, Oroville City Council. The cameraman here. I was hoping to have an update regarding some other issues, but due to the CHP's continuation of my request, I do not have that update at this time. Hopefully, I'll be able to present that at the next council meeting. But I do have a little housekeeping I would like to address. Yesterday, we celebrated MLK Day. But if you drove through the city, it looks like we're still celebrating Christmas in some parts. We still have some reefs up, some overhangs that have some candles, and we're almost at the end of the month here and into February. So if we could get that addressed, that'd be something great. And the other matter, what was the other matter? Slipped my head for a second. Oh yes, there's been some talk about the city going to CAL FIRE and that I'm not going to get too much into that, but I'd just like to briefly say on that. I do like the fact that we have local firefighters, and I think that's a good thing. CAL FIRE, their service is what it is. Some people may feel different. I still see them as a fire department just like any other fire department, but they have a different motive of operation. And I feel that that mode of operation doesn't really fit what the city needs, and I think we should just keep with what we have. I mean, there's some facts, a long list of facts that was put out. I'm not going to get into much of that, not enough time. But I'd like to keep with the city fire department. I think they're doing a good job as it is, and CAL FIRE's, I think they should just keep their station on Nelson or Grand, whichever it is. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Mark Tomlin.
Hi, thank you for listening to me. I'm speaking for all of us. There's 5 neighbors here on Fort Wayne Street between Myers and Spencer, and we would like to speak about the address 2143 Fort Wayne Street. It's the house next to the open field where you guys are constantly removing RVs and trailers, and there's half a cars, whole cars, piles of junk, and now the junk is moving across the street. And yesterday I had to physically ask somebody to leave in the lot next to us, which is on the corner of Fort Wayne and Myers, where they're trying to dump their RV waste. And me, the neighbor across the street, the neighbor 2 houses down, and the neighbor across the street from that one have all filled out paperwork for code enforcement, and David's doing a wonderful job. I'm sure you guys are overwhelmed, but we as a block no longer feel safe, and I'm begging you guys to help us get rid of that house and clean that lot up. It's a flop house. we can't walk our dogs. We can't play baseball in the alley no more. And it's complaint after complaint. And I'm at the end of my rope as a homeowner, and so are the other neighbors on this street. And this is the first time I've ever done a Zoom. God bless my daughter for being a straight shooter. We're crying out here, man.
Sir, what was that address again? Do you have it? We have it, sir. Thank you.
2143 Fort Wayne Street, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I do not see any other individuals wishing to speak at this time.
Having no more members of the public that wish to communicate on non-agenda items, we will move on to the consent calendar. We're looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Staff would like to respectfully pull item number 3.
Any more items wish to be pulled from the consent calendar? Having none, looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar with item number 3 pulled.
So moved.
A second.
Councilmember Goodson,
Yes.
Councilmember Riggs.
Yes.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Mr. Legron, you pulled item number 3 from the consent calendar. Do you wish to comment on it?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Just 2 things briefly. One, we wanted to ensure that the council has received the emails that have come in the last day regarding this issue. Those were either forwarded to you or provided to you tonight. We are also recommending that Vice Mayor Thompson and Councilperson Hatley recuse themselves from this matter. Other than that, that is all I have.
And Mr. Mayor, this is City Attorney. So the record is clear. Those 2 individuals are recusing themselves because of their of where their homes are located, where their properties are located.
And actually, and they weren't within the sphere of influence of the project, but they did it to maintain the integrity of the project, even though they weren't obligated to. But since they recused themselves the first time, now they have to recuse themselves from any further participation on this item. Sorry. Okay, so item number 3 on the consent calendar. Does anybody wish to comment on that? Do we have any public comment on that?
Mr. Mayor, I do not see anyone raising their hand or requesting to speak on this item.
Okay, and to answer your question, Mr. Legron, yes, sir, I received the emails. It seems to be the same letter signed by multiple people, and that is on our website for anyone to view. So are there any questions from this dais? I have nobody on this screen. Are they still present?
Oh, that was weird, yes.
Councilmember Riggs, are you present?
I'm present. I have no comments other than the saying that I did receive those correspondence and read through them. Agree that most of them were, 13 of the 14 were the same letter signed by various individuals.
Thank you. Councilmember Goodson, you're present?
Yes, I am. I'm just waiting on the vote.
The screen went in and out, so I just had to make sure.
Can you see us?
I can see you now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for checking, Chuck.
Absolutely. The
Smith wants to speak.
Councilmember Smith, did you wish to speak?
Yeah, I just wanted to, again, just reinforce our tremendous need as a community for housing. And just interestingly enough, I was involved with a meeting with the high school this past week where I'd asked a question of Superintendent Dr. Corey Willenberg. And it's interesting that when you look at the certificated staff for our local high schools, that the majority of them commute from out of the area, in particular from Chico. And in addition to that, I used to serve on the school board for OCESD, and I would assume that things haven't changed in the last couple of years since my involvement. And it was the same thing. And then, you know, looking at our beautiful hospital that's being put together, we know that there's going to be the need for hundreds of additional professionals. And we really just don't have the housing. And I appreciate the concerns that have been raised, and I'm confident that our staff and the like will ensure that those issues are mitigated. But I just want the community to know that we receive the benefit of these professionals coming to our community, educating our children, protecting us for our health, and yet we aren't able to provide adequate housing for these professionals that do a great service for our community. And this is just a needed thing. And I think it's just important for context to understand the benefits that we receive from these professionals, from our teachers, from health professionals, and we need to provide housing for them. And so that's why I am in support of this particular project.
Absolutely. Well said. I appreciate that. A lot of people don't realize, and I grew up here, multi-generation. Mr. Legron, when did my family come here?
61.
There you go.
So we've seen a lot of changes around here, and the neighborhood that I grew up in Thermalito, there was only a few houses on the street when I was born, and it filled in all the fields that we played in, rode our horses in, our motorcycles, all of these things, they filled in, and as the community's growing, you're absolutely right, Councilmember Smith. We have over 8,500 people a day that commute to work in Oroville because there's nowhere for them to live, but they have a lot of our high-paying jobs, a lot of good income jobs,
Yeah.
and they don't live here.
No.
So that is it might affect everybody a little different. It might affect groups, the same. But to tell you the truth, I'm a little embarrassed that, we're trying to get better clothing stores, better restaurants, but these people are not going to come here with no place to live. There's nowhere for their managers to live. There's nowhere for their upper staff to live. We need to up our game. We need to raise our standards. We need to provide. We can't sit around wondering why things aren't happening when we're the direct cause of it. If we refuse to get on board and provide housing for the people that are going to work at these nice places that we want to shop in, that we want to eat in, all of this. These are not entry-level houses. These are medium income, and these are the people that are going to work at the nice places we're trying to attract. That's one of the first questions we get is, what do you have for housing? Where's my management going to live? And we have no answer. So, Councilmember Pittman?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate all the words said. I totally agree with those. I would just add the fact that it's unique that Oroville has one of the key things about having an improvement in housing is real estate. We have a lot of ground that has the highest and best use being single-family residences and property, and that's rare for any community to have that. And I would say we are looking for market rate housing. I open the door to developers to come look at us. We have the capacity in terms of water. We can have the capacity with sewer, and we have the road capacity. So this subdivision here is just one of many. 2006, we had almost 8,000 lots that were in planning or in tentative maps, and they just, because the housing boom dropped, we have a great opportunity here for improving the community and raising the inventory, because this is where people want to live. And that's the other thing that we're trying to satisfy here. So I appreciate this particular project. I look forward for many others to come to the table so that we can move forward with these. Thank you.
Councilmember Riggs.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add that there was one letter requesting that it not be changed from high density to single family residential on the basis of the housing shortage. So just to agree with what previous council members have stated, we do have a housing issue, and allowing the subdivision does help to address that. In addition, the letters against the division and the changes in use cited concerns regarding environmental issues with Rudy Creek. And I have spoken with staff, and they've also assured that the necessary studies have been completed in order to ensure that the Rudy Creek is not impacted in a negative effect by this division.
Thank you. You know, I'd like to add to my comment as well. A couple weeks ago, I went and walked this property. I walked this property all my life as a kid in Thermalito. We pheasant hunted out there. And it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But now it is not the same. It is a complete junkyard. And it's hard for me to believe. I would much rather have a beautiful neighborhood to see productive members of society enjoying their families and raising their children there in a safe neighborhood than I would rather see that junkyard there. It is horrific. And I didn't just drive through. I got out and I walked it. I spent a few hours out there walking around looking. And this has been going on for quite a while. There are crimes being committed there. And I would imagine there are crimes being committed on the houses surrounding this project, because I actually seen a couple of unhoused, and I don't want to say unhoused because they have a house 2 blocks from there, but they choose to camp out in that field, and they were bringing stuff from a house from one of the neighborhoods that they had just stolen out of somebody's garage. So it's not, this is, I don't see a downside to this project. Like I said, things are, the community's changing. The hospital alone is bringing over 800 new jobs. Those are new jobs. So we need to have places for people to live. Councilmember Goodson.
Yes, I've listened to the council members. The first reading, I did vote no. I will vote no again for the second reading. I am definitely an advocate and immense supporter for housing on variable levels, because we're dealing with a lot of social economic levels. We all know that there's 34 to 38% that do live below the poverty level. So I'm also in agreement with the letter that was sent in regards to the higher density type of housing that the city needs as well. But my concern is in regards to the many residents that reside in that area. There are some grave concerns here. I do understand. I did have a conversation with Wes in regards to the staff report addressing a multiplicity of those concerns. I appreciate their findings, their feedback, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with everything that is reported by the staff. So we ended our conversation agreeing to disagree in some of those areas.
And I'd like to comment on that a little bit, and I don't. I'm just curious, and I don't need an answer. It's more rhetorical, but for such strong advocacy for housing, to vote no on housing that's going to provide for the management levels and worker levels at the hospital, the county offices, the school system. To me, it doesn't make any sense. We can't be 100% Section 8 affordable housing. We just can't do that. We've met our RHNA levels, the only city in the state who's met those levels for affordable housing. We cannot turn our whole town into a welfare town. There has to be people that run the businesses that have a place to live as well.
Thank you.
Councilmember
And I'm glad
Smith
that you
wishes to
mentioned-
speak.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, Mayor. My reservations have nothing to do with the housing. I am an advocate for all housing. I understand in regards to what is needed to bring in successful, productive business. I do understand about the positions, approximately 800, that will be provided by the expansion of the Oroville Hospital. My concerns are mainly in regards to CEQA and traffic impact along those lines, not housing.
Okay, Ms. Goodson, I appreciate your explanation. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment again on Councilwoman Riggs regarding the entry level. There was a letter expressing the high density housing, hope, and you've already expressed it, Mr. Mayor, where we have met or approaching meeting our requirements for entry level housing. And so, as a community, as a town, we're hitting those marks. It's again, just where I think we're beating a dead horse here, but it's those market rate housing that we so desperately need. And again, just going back to my earlier comments, we enjoy these professionals that service our community, but we're not providing the housing for them. And so, again, I think this is just a great project. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments from the dais?
And just one, and as far as the CEQA and some of the other environmental concerns, that's where we, again, as council, as mayor, we rely heavily on staff and on those environmental reports and the due diligence that is absolutely necessary to ensure public safety. And so, we're looking to that. And if there's any glitches or questions or problems, then I think that would be brought to light. So,
Well, one of my concerns with that would be with the environmental issues is if anyone went out there and walked that like I did, you could see the multiple vehicles that are stripped out there that are leaking motor oil and transmission fluid, antifreeze, all of these things into our ground, seeping into our water table. So if you want to clean up the environment, which I'm all for, this is an excellent way to do it.
and don't forget the yacht that's out there. The big
The
boat.
what?
The big boat.
Yeah.
The big boat. There's
Yeah.
a few big boats.
Yep.
If anybody's looking. So, anyway, if there are no further comments, I'm looking for a motion to adopt item number 3.
I'll make the motion to approve the second reading and introduced by title only, ordinance number 1851 of tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
Councilmember Goodson,
No.
Councilmember Riggs.
Yes.
The motion carries with 4 yeses, 1 no, and 2 are recused. The vote yeses were Pittman, Reynolds, Riggs, and Smith. No is Goodson, and recused is Hatley and Thompson.
Regular business.
Okay. Madam Clerk, we have 2 council members returning to the dais. Will you take the roll, please?
Councilmember Riggs,
Here.
Councilmember Goodson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hatley, Councilmember Pittman,
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Vice Mayor Thompson,
Here.
Mayor Reynolds.
Here. Okay, we're going to jump over public hearings because we made a promise to start them at 5:15. So we're going to take care of regular business right now. Item number 8, city budget policy and purchasing procedures.
Good evening, Mayor Reynolds and council members. What you have before you is a revision to our city budget and purchasing policy. We are requesting that the limit for the city administrator spending authority to be raised from $10,000 to $25,000. It's been probably 10 years since this has been revised, and we feel it would be very efficient for us to operate with a big increase in spending limit.
Do you have any questions from the public on this item?
Are there any public members that would like to speak on this item? Mr. Mayor, I'm not seeing any public comment on this item.
Do we have any questions from the dais? Councilmember Pittman.
You know, I serve on a couple other subcommittees and agencies, the Housing Authority, and I did serve on the oversight for the Federal Recreation Park District, and I think this amount is well within most norms and all the other agencies in this immediate area, so I have no problem with this policy.
Any other comments? Councilmember Hatley.
Thank you. So is this just for the city administrators or for every department head goes to 25,000?
The city administrator.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
It's just the city administrator.
And how many times has this come up that it's gone over the 10,000?
It would be reported to council if it did, but there's very seldom that we don't bring it to council, that it just goes over 10,000. So this would just be more efficient and less things would have to come to you if you increase the spending limit to 25,000.
Okay. And also in this, there are some other, like Exhibit A, some other things that were changing wording and things in that. And I was kind of curious because on page 89 at the bottom, and I don't know, this is the one that I have, but it talks about Article 8 and Section 1 of the Charter. And I was wondering why you were either adding verbiage, because right now the charter says that the mayor's in charge of the city, which that's right, during riot, insurrection, or extraordinary emergencies. And you're changing it to war, natural disaster, major civil, or accident. And first of all, if it's a major incident, the sheriff's going to take over just like he always does because it's in the county and we're in the county. And so I'm trying to figure out, are you adding verbiage to it or are you replacing verbiage? What way and why?
There's no changes other than the track copies. So the first change that we're requesting is on page 7. And every change that we're asking for is marked in red in the document. So there's absolutely no changes to the verbiage to page 1. It starts on page 7, and it is just the spending authority of the city administrator.
Councilman Hatley, what you have in front of you is what has existed for years, the Oroville City Budget Policy and Purchasing. So that language somebody may have inadvertently put in there and passed, so we can certainly go back and make sure that it is compliant and matches what the charter says. So we can change that. That is not new language.
I don't have anything in red, so.
Page 93 is where the red markup should be.
Okay,
So this is the language. They're only changing the mark out is just what's changed. Everything else was in there before.
Okay, so Exhibit A has always been in there?
Yes.
So what we'll do, Councilman Hatley, is we will go back and we will make sure that that language is in line with what the charter actually says, because I understand what you're saying, and we will make sure that that is correct.
I'm just wondering why. I mean, if it's an act of war.
Somewhere over time, someone changed that. I mean,
I was just curious why, how
Sure.
that came about, because,
Right.
and I'm not saying that, I'm not, other than I looked at that and I thought, well, wait a minute. And then I read what the charter said, and then I thought, well, why? What's happened that would change that language is all. I mean, because it's still, the mayor still has the authority. It's just that, just like I do, that if something major happens, like just, a catastrophe like the dam or whatever, the sheriff always ends up in charge. And so it's like, I was just curious why the verbiage had changed, or I had never seen this before.
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
It's my intention to split this policy. This is a budget policy and purchasing policy. It's my intention to split them, but I didn't want to split it and then change numbers all at the same time. So right now I'm just changing the spending limit, and in the future, maybe a few months, I will be bringing back a draft of a split budget and purchasing policy, and we can clean that up then.
I appreciate Councilmember Hatley's comments, and having made note of that, from here on out, I'd like to be addressed as general.
I would motion
We're
that we
looking for a
approve the
motion,
policy
yeah.
as agendized.
I second.
Councilmember Goodson,
Yes.
Councilmember Riggs.
Yes.
The motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 no. The no is Hatley.
Okay, moving on to item number 9, scanning and archiving of old City Hall documents.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. What you have before you tonight is consideration of a contract with Left Coast Scanning. Staff has reached out to 3 different companies to get various prices on scanning and digitizing our old records that are currently stored in the basement and everywhere else that you can imagine in this building. In September 14th of 2020, and there was a budget carryover that the council approved $300,000 for this project. Staff is requesting a limit of $200,000 for this project, utilizing Left Coast Scanning to come pick up those documents, scan those documents, and destroy the documents that are no longer necessary for us to retain. Once that is done, it'll all be stored digitally. The staff is also requesting $20,000 to upgrade our Laserfish system so that our outward-facing system allows people to search those archives and look through those records and look for various pieces of history of the city that they may be looking for. Currently right now what you have is you have stacks and stacks of paper in your basement and shelves and everywhere else around here. To me, that's not a useful record. That's trash. I mean, if it can't be accessed, if it's not accessible, and you have nowhere to even begin to look for what you're looking for, you just got a pile of paper. You don't have a record. This will actually turn your history and your archives into records that are searchable and usable. So we're requesting permission to enter into the contract with Left Coast Scanning. The reason why we picked Left Coast, they were not the least expensive, but they are a local company in Chico who will also dispose of the documents, and they will pick the documents up from here. So it lessens the burden upon staff, and we just felt like we were going to get a better product from Left Coast. I have our IT manager, Mr. Pardee, here to answer any questions that you may have.
Council, well, let's take questions from the public if we have any first.
Are there any public speakers that wish to speak on this item? Mr. Mayor, I'm not seeing any public speakers on this item, although it does look like Left Coast is also here if you have questions of that person, of that group as well.
Okay, great. Councilmember Hatley wishes to speak.
Thank you. When I went through this Left Coast Scanning and all the amounts on the pages that they submitted, I came up with $135,296.90, which leaves up to, and I realize you're asking for a range there, And that would leave 64,703 and change to, do you?
The difference, yeah, no,
What's that for?
that money, the 18,294 for Laserfish will come out of that 67,000 that is left available. So that would take us down to about 47,000 roughly, ballpark numbers. The 47,000 is for large documents such as blueprints and things like that, where we may have some overages that were not anticipated, and also for additional destruction of documents that we didn't anticipate that we were going to have destroyed but need to be destroyed.
Okay.
We're not saying that we're going to spend all that. We just want to have that ability. So if this project grows on us, that we have the ability to adjust to the project as it grows.
No, okay. But I was just wondering now, so with, let's just say everything goes according to plan, and it turns out to be 135,000 and change to do that, then instead of an additional almost $19,000, you would just take it from this rather than the two separate. Because the way I read this, I'd have 200,000
Yeah.
for this and then another 19,000 for the update. And I'm just trying to get the money
Right.
figured out where it's.
No, as I'm looking at this, is this, and you can correct me if I'm incorrect on this, Mr. Party, the entire amount for the project will not exceed $200,000. The
That's including
19,000, is that correct, comes out of the 200,000?
Yes, I think that's what we had talked about with this, is
Yeah,
that would come out of.
Our intent was the project will not exceed an amount of $200,000, and we're willing to, just for clarity on this, to clean up the recommendation, we're asking for authorization for an amount not to exceed $200,000 to include the Laserfish upgrade.
Okay, I was just
Right,
trying to
yeah.
figure out the
No, no.
difference, because I had $19,000 over here, rounding off.
Yes, sir.
And 200 over here, and I was just trying to figure it was gonna be 219 altogether, or how it was working out.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's
No.
what I needed to know.
No, and
Thank
that was a great catch, Sarah. It provides better clarity, I believe.
you. Okay.
Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a great idea. It's a great project. A couple questions I have is, I know you're talking about city hall records in the basement here and that kind of thing, but reaching out to the other departments, some of the departments, and I know particularly the fire department has a lot of records, terms of training, the old log books that go back into the 40s. Is that part of this project, or would that be something later on?
As far as the fire department, that was not considered part of this project.
I think part of the logbooks, Councilman Pittman, that we would have, that would be a historical document. What we've done with the ones at the police department previously is we've donated or loaned those long-term to the Butte County Historical Society so they could be properly cared for and viewed there. So that would probably be a better location for this type of materials. As far as training records and things like that, we're kind of sort of bumping up against a personnel area there, so we would have to consult with our HR manager to find out what we can make available to the public and not. But this is certainly something, I know the police department has been working at minimizing their paper copies of things and digitizing theirs on their own, been doing it for many years. We are just really behind the 8 ball here.
Well, and there's one other department, like in Parks Department. I know there's been many, many things donated to the city parks, but we really don't even have a recognition of that donation, who it was from, where it went, and what it was. And I don't even know if the Parks Department even has that record anymore, but there's a difficulty there too, that some would like to know recognition for that. And this is obviously is a place to put this type of activity. So, and I don't know if we're there that far yet, but maybe down the road be a planning thing to do.
Yeah, I think we're going to try to capture everything that we can to store it. I think it's a great place to start, though, to take us into the future as that happens.
Right.
That way we have a better way of preserving our history.
Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I likewise, I love this project. History is so important. And we know the power of words, as one person said it, it all depends on what the meaning of the word is. So a little 2-letter word can certainly change the meaning of something. So that being said, accuracy, as these documents are scanned in, they're converted over to some sort of PDF form or some format that's searchable, the queries, multiple words, which I think is awesome. I'm sure the public would really appreciate that. But will there be a photographed keepsake of these documents? Because again, just to make that point, words, and perhaps there's an inaccuracy, would there be a way forward in the future to check that if there was ever a question? That, and then secondly, the maintaining of these records moving forward, how is that going to happen?
My understanding is these are going to be scans of the actual documents. We're not going to be retyping them or anything like that. This is an actual scan picture of the document as it exists. So whatever inaccuracies may be in there, they will be there.
I'm familiar with software, and the IT person can, because I know that, like, for example, when I convert a document that's a JPEG or a GIF, and then that converts it over to text so that the computer can then understand what it's looking at. So there is opportunity there for potentially for changing of words. So that's why I was asking about the double custody of the original GIF or JPEG image, and then also the the searchable format as well.
So the way that Laserfish grabs it is it does maintain kind of that picture copy. Mm-hmm. And what it reads, it actually puts into what's considered metadata so that it's searchable. So if there is any mistranslation that's not on the document itself, it's within the metadata, and we can go and manipulate that if we find that there are some discrepancies. But the document itself that gets scanned in is not touched. The moment it gets scanned in, it's on a layer of its own. And even if it's a document that someone wants to come in and do a redaction on or something like that, that primary document never gets touched. It sits on its own layer and will not be affected by any means.
Great, thank you.
I have a couple of comments on this project. I think it's great. I actually have personal experience with, negative experience with the current system that we have. Nearly 20 years ago, I went to do a project, and I came down to the city and asked for a subdivision map, and was told they didn't know where that information was. And I said, well, it's a city subdivision. It should be readily available. And the gentleman told me that, well, I can go down in the basement and dig around in some old boxes, but if I do find something, it could take 10 to 11 months. I was kind of curious as that time frame, how that was analyzed, but I think what that was I'm going to tell you that it'll take long enough for you to lose interest. So I have some personal experience in this area. It was negative, and I think that this is an absolutely wonderful project. So anyone who's ever toured City Hall, if you've ever been through the basement, or even a lot of office space is stacked with boxes. Mm-hmm. So I say we get it cleaned up, and great job, Tyson. Thank you. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this item? Mr. DiPaolo.
We're talking about history and posterity and all that. One thing I will also tell you is we spend a hidden cost of almost $100,000 a year in staff time for public records requests. And the more that we can make available to the public to search from their home computers, it reduces that. So even if we just cut it in half, this pays for itself within 4 years. So I think that's from just a hidden labor cost. I think it's a wise decision as well.
Excellent point. Thank you.
Good point.
Looking for a motion to authorize.
Motion. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I motion to authorize a professional services agreement with Left Coast Scanning, including the Laserfish licensing, with a total project cost not to exceed $200,000.
Second.
Councilmember Goodson?
Yes.
Councilmember Riggs?
Yes.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to, just go and thank Jesse Smith. He's who put this staff report together. He spent numerous hours going through this stuff and researching this, and you just want to say he did a really good job for us, and I appreciate his work on this.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate that. Item number 10, Street Department skid steer attachments and dump trailer replacement.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. What we're looking at is replacing our compact skid steer down at the Corporation Yard. The one we currently have is 33 years old. It has approximately 2 years of life left in it. After that, CARB is going to require us to take it out of service. What we have in front of you for you to consider purchasing is a 279D3 compact skid steer. It is it does not have wheels on it. This is one that has tracks on it. So the benefit of that is when we're doing cleanups and things like that, we don't get flat tires. We don't have the expense of that. This will come with a cold planer, an asphalt grinder, a jackhammer, the attachment for our stump grinder to go onto that we have previously purchased, and a bucket. We are also asking for the dollars to purchase a trailer so that it can be towed to various places to do those cleanups. This will be utilized by not only our street department, but also code enforcement and numerous parks department and other departments using this small piece of equipment. This piece of equipment in particular is greatly needed down at the Corporation Yard because the other one is getting ready to go out of service. Once it does go out of service, is no longer CARB compliant, we'll be bringing that back to send that out of state for sell for whatever we can get for something such as that. So with that, this was looked at through the Sourcewell, formerly the NJPA, Government Education and Nonprofit Organization Cooperative Purchasing Agreement. We got cooperative purchasing agreement pricing on this, so this is the best price that we can get for this. We are looking for $131,934, including the tax, to purchase the skid steer and attachments, and $15,326.62 to purchase the trailer. The total amount of both purchases would come from the capital asset replacement fund. We are currently looking into the possibility of using transportation dollars to purchase this. Last year, we allocated approximately $3.4 million for roadway repair. We sent our bids out. We got a really good deal from the people that did the repairs this year. They gave us about $1.9 million in repairs that was done, almost $2 million, and $95,000 for the engineering oversight that was necessary for the roadway work. So we have about $1.4 million left in that account. We're looking at possibly spending that money out of there if we can do that. Right now, the capital asset replacement fund has $2 million in it, so we are asking for permission to purchase this tractor in an amount not to exceed $150,000.
Do we have any questions from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not seeing any public wishing to speak on this item.
Thank you. Councilmember Pittman?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think that having good tools and new equipment is the only way we can expect good performance. I see a similar tractor like this was purchased by SCORE not too long ago, and they've had great success with that at the sewer plant. So it's a good idea. Thank you.
Councilmember Hatley?
Yeah, I agree. We need this piece of equipment. I was just curious, so what are the tracks, the rubber ones or whatever
Yes,
they
sir.
are, so that you can do it on the road?
Yes, sir, they're rubber tracks.
Okay, that's all I care.
It has a maximum speed of 8.3 miles per hour, and the reason why I know all this is because the city, part of the deal that I have with the city is they'll provide me a vehicle to drive back and forth to work. So I was thinking that maybe this would be something that I would enjoy driving.
He's telling you he's going to be late.
You put in there, could you line it, could you come by and get all the count?
Sure, maybe right in the bucket.
Go right in the front.
It would just be fun to drive, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
If there's any other questions, I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the Caterpillar skid steer utilizing the recommendation in this agenda.
I second that.
Just to clarify for the record, that includes a dump trailer?
Yes.
Yes, trailer and all attachments listed.
Councilmember Goodson?
Yes.
Councilmember Riggs? Councilmember Riggs?
Yes.
Sorry. Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Moving on to item number 11, council policies and procedures.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. What you have before you tonight is just an opportunity for the council to discuss any potential council policy or procedures. At the last council meeting, we did discuss these policies and procedures. At the time, Councilperson Goodson wished to speak, but unfortunately in the hustle and bustle of the virtual meeting and things like that, that did not happen. So I placed this back on the agenda to see what Councilperson Goodson would like to speak about, if anything. I'm not trying to put anybody under pressure.
One second, council member. Do we have any questions from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not seeing any public members wishing to speak on this item.
Okay, great. Council member Goodson?
Yes, thank you so very much. And I want to thank the staff. I especially want to thank Jackie Glover, our city clerk, for doing a tremendous job in getting out the agenda and the packet. I was wondering if we could advance that timing to perhaps getting it out by Wednesday evening or Thursday morning.
Councilperson Goodson, just what we've recently done, yes, we can do that. And what we've done recently is we've required that staff reports that are coming for the next council meeting be turned in prior to this council meeting. So what we've done is we've just requiring our staffs to submit their staff reports sooner so that we can produce that agenda and get it out to you sooner, because we understand the pressure that we put you under by putting that thing out late Friday, then expecting you by Tuesday morning to have your mind made up and, done all the necessary research that you want. So yes, we absolutely can do that.
Thank you so very much.
Anyone else? Okay, well, I think we're just directing staff to get the agenda out.
Yes, sir.
A little sooner. Thank you. All right, well, we're past 5:15, so at this time, we're going to open the meeting up for public hearing. We have one item, item number 7, zoning code amendment and proposed revision of Oroville Municipal Code 1720, the city's sign ordinance.
Good evening, Mayor Reynolds and council members. This evening is the first reading to request consideration for amendments to the city's sign code regulations found within the city's municipal code. In general, the goal of the sign code amendments are to provide greater clarity for the types of signage allowed within the city, how they are regulated, and to remove some overly restrictive language within our sign code that currently exists. Staff has worked with our planning commission for over 5 years. They developed an ad hoc committee to develop this sign code amendments. Recently, they have held public workshops discussing the sign code amendments. They've worked with other agencies or received comments from Stott Outdoors to enhance the sign code amendments. So some of the changes highlighted are stiffer maintenance and repair criteria, language for non-commercial and political signs, an expanded list of prohibited signs, clarification language for freestanding and freeway-oriented signs, as well as the addition of the section for creative signs. So you'll see in your packet where everything in red and underlined has been added, and everything struck out is recommended for removal.
Okay, do we have any comments from the public on this item?
Mr. Mayor, it looks like Greg Redger from Stott Outdoor would like to speak on this item.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I wanted to thank you for considering this sign code amendment. I wanted to give a shout out to staff. They have been great to work with through all of the Planning Commission hearings and workshops. They've been very receptive to Stott's input and suggestions, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. There is one remaining little item, and it has to do with spacing of signs in relation to city streets as opposed to state highways. Under an older version of the code, it allowed for signs on city streets to be only 300 feet apart. The revised code says 500 feet apart. This change is going to make a number of STOT's existing signs into legal non-conforming structures. I did actually inadvertently overstate the number. It actually turns out it's only 7 or 8 signs that are going to be turned into legal non-conforming. But we would respectfully request that there be some flexibility to go back down to that 300 foot where 1 or 2 of the signs in question are on a local city street through the use permit process.
Does anyone wish to comment on that?
Which specific, are we talking about the billboard sign that STOT manages, or are we talking about business signs?
This is it relates to outdoor advertising signs, that is billboards.
Off-premise signs. And so, again, these signs are located within commercial and industrial zoning districts only. Many of the signs identified as well fall within that area between Highway 70 and the Feather River corridor because they're closer than 500 feet to each other, so they conflict with each other. And so those are some of the primary locations, but there are other locations identified by STOT.
And so thank you. With that, is there a specific reason why, I mean, I'm actually in agreement with the increased distance to 500, but was there a specific dialogue that brought that number up to 500?
That was a number that the Planning Commission Ad Hoc Committee had fallen on because they did not want an oversaturation of signs or an overconcentration of signs along a street or a corridor. And so that was really the intent, is to spread out those distances.
Great.
Mm-hmm. And Mr. Mayor, if I might, let me add and address the one item that was brought up. Signs that currently exist that are closer than 500 feet. Mr. Redeker actually used the appropriate title, which is legal non-conforming. They're not illegal just because you change the code. Those signs that are there, they're legal.
They're there.
What it means is you couldn't do that in the future.
Right.
Now, there is a mechanism by which if someone wants to put signs closer than 500 feet, they can apply for a variance. It's not necessarily an easy process. It's not necessarily an inexpensive process. But there is an avenue available if there is a location where someone in Mr. Redeker's line of work thought, hey, this is a good spot where you could reasonably have some that are 300 feet or 350 feet apart, and they could then come and apply for a variance to put the signs up closer than what the ordinance allows. That would come to the council for a hearing. But I do want to just make clear, the signs that exist now, assuming that this is passed by the council, the signs that currently exist that don't conform to this are still legal. They can still be used. They do not have to be taken down. I just want to make sure that's clear.
Great. That's what I was concerned about, was I didn't want them to have to take anything down.
No, not at all.
Are you finished, Vice Mayor?
I am. I have a different question outside of this, but I see that Councilmember Smith is in the queue.
Councilmember Smith, please.
Yeah, just to repeat, the purpose of this, again, is oversaturation, and I appreciate the staff. I know you've been working very, very diligently on this. Oversaturation of signage, and especially as we add, like Mavericks coming, and we start adding all these signs, and then, it could even become a potential hazard or just eye clutter. And so I appreciate the spirit of the law. And to that effect, when I'm looking at this, I'm just going to propose that we add 3 little words. Words are powerful, right? We made that point earlier. We're here in 17-23A, where it states a minimum of 500 feet shall be maintained. I want to propose that we, within the spirit of the law, add 3 words, line of sight, after 500 feet. Line of sight shall be maintained. Would that make sense? So in other words, if I'm going down the road and I have sign after sign, this would line of sight. So if I have a sign here, but then I have it on another street and it's not line of sight, then that might be okay. And that might also mitigate some of the concerns that have been raised that could have impacts. So it meets the spirit of the law, which is to ensure we don't have clutter, and yet it kind of is maybe helps with that mitigating impacts. And I'm throwing that out there just for you all to kind of digest, and the attorney as well.
Yeah, I'm not. What I think the unintended consequence of that, and again, I have no dog in the hunt here, so I'm not, I'm not being critical in this comment. The unintended consequence is you could have signs that are within 50 feet of each other, provided you can't see one while you can't see the other while you're standing next to one of them. But if again, as you're driving, you're going to see them all in great succession. You would have a lot of them around, ideal spots would be on corners then, or close to a corner, because you could have one and then another one just right around the corner. Would that cause any major heartburn? Not necessarily to me.
Yeah.
Again,
I think
policy question. It's your call.
And I appreciate Stott, and they're a wonderful company. A lot of our businesses utilize that service. And I was just trying to think of a way to, within the spirit of the law, maintain that, which is clutter, oversaturation, and still allowing them to do their business. They've been in, I don't know how many years, but they're certainly a valued business in our community. And I know a lot of our businesses utilize that service, and it's appreciated service. Just trying to mitigate that. But, if it doesn't work, if there's a legal issue with it, then it doesn't work. But I just wanted to toss that out there.
And I wonder from a functional standpoint, based on the zones where these are allowed, I wonder from a functional standpoint whether that would make any difference. I'm not sure it would, to be quite honest with you. These are predominantly along Highway 70 and in industrial areas.
Well,
not sure
again,
how much that would matter.
The intent is to simplify our sign ordinance, and I think when we add in additional language, it starts to muddy the waters as far as objectively looking at an application that comes in and, having to say, well, it's 500 feet, but it's still within line of sight. I think that just makes it a little bit more difficult, but that's my opinion.
And the legal non-conforming language, I think, against Stott, as long as you don't change anything, they're good. So,
Yeah, I think that would, and always excellent input, Councilmember Smith. I think that would open that up for interpretation from individuals and rather than just having good, simple, clean language. I appreciate your input. Vice Mayor Thompson.
If just to help out, can you explain how this ordinance would affect sandwich board signs?
So sandwich board signs are allowed within the Downtown Historic Overlay District. So you'll find that on.
I was looking.
I'll let you know the page.
Those have to come in each evening?
17-20.090. It's under temporary signs.
Mr. Rieger, did you wish to speak on the last part of the conversation?
Yeah, if I could. I just wanted to point out that, the comment was pretty clear and objective. It would allow to go down to 300 feet if one of the two signs that are closer than 500 feet is on a city street. And I'd also like to just point out that every single one of these signs does have to go through a use permit process. So there will be a public hearing and an opportunity for both the Planning Commission and the nearby property owners and residents to weigh in on each one of these as they move forward.
Okay, thank you. Did we find our answer?
Yes, so it's in page 72 of your packet, or page 143 of the amended ordinance. So they are allowed in non-residential districts and the downtown historic overlay with a maximum square foot of 8 feet for each side. So no taller than 4 feet and no wider than 2 feet for sandwich boards.
And do those have to come in each night is my main question, right?
That is correct.
Great.
So they have to come as what?
They have to come in each night. They can't just
come in.
Pulled in off the sidewalk.
I can't quite hear.
or off the yard or whatnot, because sometimes those can be, used to go around actually getting an official sign. And then I've seen properties that had, sandwich board after sandwich board after sandwich board, and they never move. And so it looks horrible, in my opinion.
Councilmember Hatley.
Thank you. Under 17-20- or .100, under requirements for residential districts. Okay? It says they can have display one wall, window, banner, canopy, or freestanding sign. So on someone with at their house, they can have a for sale sign in their yard, but that would pretty much stop it right there, wouldn't it? You couldn't put anything else up. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be correct. And that would also fall under temporary signs.
So
Tell me the section you're looking at again.
It's
what?
What section were you looking at? For 100?
Yeah.
Page 74. Yeah, page 74.
Okay, so the way I'm reading this, let's say, and I know there are some people in the community that will have in their house, they'll have a sign in the window for whatever they're doing. So they could only have one sign in their window, if I'm reading this correct. And if they decide to put up two signs in their window, then we're going to try and come and enforce that in some way, which kind of tells me something, unless I plan on, and this city plans on buying their house and restricting what they can do on their own property, we have too much government involved in our lives as it is. And people tell us what we can and can't do. And so if you come on to somebody's property and say, you can have one sign in your window, or you can have, you can't, I don't like the color of your house. I mean, what's next? It's like, I think we better be very careful when we start messing with people's private property and making things here that we're going to come in and start trying to prosecute them on, or fine them, or do whatever we think we're going to do to them. Because what if this, I know an older gentleman that lives in the city that has 2 or 3 signs in these windows. Now, is he hurting anything? Not to me, he's not. It doesn't bother me. I don't care what he puts in it. But the thing is, if it's on the inside of his window, so you'd better write a search warrant, or you better do something to go in that man's house. And I would probably wear a vest, because I don't think that we should be going into people's houses and tearing their signs down or doing stuff like that. I think that's just wrong. I think that, when you start messing with people's private property any more than you'd like, to go to a commercial property and say, I don't like that, get it down.
Right.
That property, that business owner is going to say, wait a minute, this is my money, this is my livelihood, I spent this, unless you plan on paying me. I mean, to me, I just don't want to start getting into where we're forcing people to do something that and I'll refer to our attorney, but that's just the way it seems to me with this section here. It just kind of puts a little backup in me.
So let me address a couple items that you mentioned, Councilmember Hatley. First, let me separate, and there is a great distinction here. One of the difficult things with signs, and I think Mr. Redeker can appreciate this. This is the confluence of constitutional law, zoning, commercial laws, and all kinds of other the First Amendment. There's all kinds of. This is sort of the where they all come together, and where sometimes they all clash. And so let me separate for a moment commercial versus non-commercial speech. If someone has a sign in their window, and it's a non-commercial sign, clearly allowed by this code. It is certainly allowed by this code. And by the way, whether it's commercial or non-commercial, no one is going anyone's home to rip out a sign. No, that's not what this code authorizes. So let me deal with that. But if it's a non-commercial sign, that's not prohibited by this code. This code will regulate commercial signs. If someone puts up a sign in their window that says, I'm selling mandarins or something, then then that would be a temporary sign that would fit under the business, component. There are regulations if you're going to operate a business, or if you're going to do some type of commercial business, there are regulations that would be in play. Now, that doesn't mean that sign would be necessarily prohibited. What it means is they would have to follow the rules that are outlined here. And I'm going to now step away from this for just a minute, because as my role as a city attorney, I believe that all of these should be ordinances should be followed. That's just a general rule that I live my life by. Having said that, you mentioned someone's got 3 signs in their window and they're not hurting anybody. I haven't heard of anybody going and citing that person either and giving them a citation for having 3 signs in their window. I think there is this understanding that people live their lives and we're generally okay with it. What we're trying to prevent is we're trying to regulate properly the advertising that individuals do, so that there's a balance, so that individuals who live in this community can be, they're going to expect a certain amount of signage, but they're going to expect only a certain amount of signage. They're not going to be overrun by signs. And I'm going to use an extreme, and I don't mean to offend anybody. This wouldn't be Las Vegas with all the neon signs. We're not going to recreate the Strip here, on Oro Dam Boulevard. That would be extreme. So that's sort of the purpose of this. And again, I'm not trying to slight anybody from Las Vegas. It's a wonderful place if you like the heat. But it's sort of an appropriate amount of regulation so that businesses can operate, they can advertise, they can let people know we're here, we're in business, we're operating, and individuals who live there can expect to have a certain amount of minimal intrusion in their view shed, in their view, as they go down a street. It's sort of a balance of all of those things. And so, I'll go back to your comment about someone with a sign in the window. Under most scenarios, those are going to be allowed, depending on what the sign says. Now, again, I'm not going to state what I'll use one of my law school ones. Free speech is wonderful, but you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. Well, signs are wonderful, but they have to be appropriate. They have to be message appropriate.
No, I get that.
And anyway, so non-commercial speech, if someone wants to put up a sign in their window with, I don't know, a scripture or something, that fine. A, it's not prevented by the code. B, no one's going to have any problem with it. So that's where I would try and separate, is the sign a commercial sign, like they're, selling something, or is it they're trying to deliver a message?
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. What about campaign signs?
So political or campaign signs are addressed in 2 locations. So on page 57, it is addressed, and as well as 73. So we have non-commercial and political signs. No provision of this article shall prohibit political or other non-commercial messages on a sign otherwise permitted by this article. And then again on 73, it goes deeper into political signs. In residential districts, up to 32 square feet of non-illuminated signs may be displayed, with each side having a maximum area of 8 square feet and a maximum height of 4 feet. And then it goes into in non-residential districts, up to 64 square feet of signs may be displayed, with each side having a maximum area of 32 square feet may be displayed. So it does discuss political signs, just in a little broader terms.
So 64 square feet, 8 by 8. What about that big, I don't know if Stott owns it, but it's a big digital sign on Oro Dam. Is that more than 64 square feet? Would that be illegal in a campaign?
It's interesting. I hadn't thought of the digital signs for campaigns.
The short answer is no. It would not be illegal. So that digital sign has been approved. It is in place and it's operating. And so anybody who wants to advertise on it can advertise on it. You've got to call obviously the owner of who's got the rights on it, which is Stott Advertising. This relates to political signs. I believe you've got residential and commercial areas. These are the like the campaign signs that you see.
Okay.
But advertising on the digital billboards that exist, no, that's not prohibited by this and not governed by this because that sign already exists, and it would be fine.
Well, the the structure exists, but not the content. So the content would be new. That could be argued.
No, it actually can't because this is where I say you've got the confluence of constitutional law and the First Amendment, and we are not regulating the content of speech anywhere in this. And I actually worked with the counsel for the California Sign. Mr. Ediker, help me with the name of the California Sign Association. With an attorney in Sacramento to make sure that we are not regulating speech in any way. Because when you regulate speech, you've got really heightened scrutiny.
And I don't want to argue with you, Mr. Attorney, but I just heard you tell Councilmember Hatley that as long as the sign said the right thing, nobody would bother him.
Well, this again, there is a distinction in the constitutional law cases: commercial versus non-commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Non-commercial speech is different than commercial speech.
Because we're moving into some new times here where we have a higher government that is trying to govern nearly everything that is said. So.
Yeah, so the digital billboard sign is actually not a temporary political sign.
Okay.
It doesn't.
So that's what excludes it.
Yeah, it doesn't fit that definition of a temporary political sign.
All right. I concede to you, sir. Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, my question is really on your workshops and the Planning Commission's discussions. My particular preference, I like the electronic signs. I think they're very informational. What was the Planning Commission, the workshops discussion on those?
They liked keeping the digital billboards or the electronic signs as is. Mostly what they changed for that was the distance on the Highway 70 corridor in which how many can be placed. So they have changed that from a 2-mile distance for placement down to a 1-mile distance. So one more digital billboard can be placed along the 70 corridor, if I remember correctly. And also the digital billboards have to be Highway 70 traffic oriented. To be placed within that corridor at that 1-mile distance or 1-mile span.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Goodson.
Yes, thank you. John, I would like a better understanding, just a little more clarification on the number of signs that can be placed within and or on private property, specifically during campaign season. I know that during the past campaign season, there were discrepancies in regards to how many signs a property owner could display, and especially during a pivotal presidential election year, limiting a private property owner's the limit of signs would stifle their ability to display a sign for their presidential candidate, for a measure, a city council person, and or a variety of city council candidates. Could you clarify that, please?
Yes, actually what we did was remove the number of signs. It was a maximum of 2 signs, and we replaced it with a maximum square footage of 32 square feet, with those political signs not exceeding 8 square feet. And 4 feet in height. So however many signs you can fit within 32 square feet on your property would be the maximum. So get creative with all of them.
Now, I have a second part to this question. How does that measure out in terms of on a fence?
She's talking about my fence.
It just depends on
just fences in general.
in residential property. It could be a maximum of 32 square feet. So you could have however many signs you want, as long as those signs, the square footage of those signs does not exceed 32 square feet along that residential fence, but they cannot be within the public right of way.
Ah, okay. Thank you so very much, Don.
You're welcome.
Residential fence. Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, again, I know that a lot of work has gone into this, and appreciate some of the changes that were made. As it goes to the temporary signage, in particular, in Oroville, we have a lot of festivals and events that are one-offs. And so some of these things are going to affect probably what I do, as I had earlier discussed. And so it would be a real service and just a request that once all of this is hammered out and launched, that with like a permit process, you're coming in, for example, downtown, right? Councilwoman Riggs is very familiar with that process. They're doing the events downtown for the day. If there was a boilerplate, simplified one page, to my the people are participating in this event. This is what you can and cannot do. This is what's allowed. That would be wonderful. So just kind of simplified, because I'm sitting there reading through it, trying to, decipher, okay, what can we do? What can't we do? Because this is going to impact my, what I do.
What we can do also is have an attachment or additional language to our special event permit application process.
That would be great. This is really helpful.
Vice Mayor Thompson.
2 questions. What about the side of like a semi-truck?
No, that's transportation.
And that is mentioned, and I don't know the exact location at the moment, but I can find it for you. It is discussed as far as...
No jurisdiction.
Because we have had, and one of the situations that brought that up was a truck with a billboard in the bed of it was parked on various corners. Well, that was part of the reason for this language being added in. I can find that for you really quickly. I just don't know it off the top of my head. I apologize.
While you're looking at that second question, just to keep things rolling, is just how will this ordinance affect regarding signs and windows that we were previously talking about? If you go to drugstores, liquor stores, they often have all of their windows plastered with the different stuff that they sell inside. How would this ordinance affect those businesses?
The windows are to be kept free of obstruction for the most part so that you can visibly see within those businesses. And that signage would be advertising for the commercial products typically within those stores. And so as far as the surface area coverage, I'd have to find exactly what that language is for you. This is a very in-depth ordinance, so I apologize. I don't have these things on the top of my head.
Oh, wow.
And just to be clear, I'm talking about like the Salmon Festival, Feather Fiesta Days, where obviously a lot of us are involved with that, and all of us put up banners and signs and A-frames, and so many of us are involved with it. And that's what I'm really referring to. I just wanted the public to be clear on that.
Right.
So it's not me personal, but what we do as a community. And it's going to impact all of us.
Right.
So the more clear, the better for everyone involved.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a good request.
Are we looking for an answer for Vice Mayor Thompson?
Yes.
She is.
Because I have Councilmember Riggs in the queue.
Thank you.
Councilmember Riggs, would you like to speak while they're researching?
Just in relation to the Vice Mayor's comment, the Alcohol Beverage Control actually has laws regarding the amount of signage allowed within the windows of gas stations or liquor stores. I know that some locations have been grandfathered in and within that law, including the one on Oro Dam. across from, I can't recall what it's across from. And so there is alcohol beverage control that also has additional rules regarding the amount of window covered.
So under prohibited signs, signs that obstruct a door, window, fire escape, or other required access way are prohibited. So those signs obstructing windows are prohibited.
Does that answer your question?
One of the two.
There's some stores that are completely filled with signs.
Signs.
Also
everywhere,
signs. Mm-hmm. Yes, I was just about to read that one.
This is also look. It's funny how you can instantly find what I will call the deep end of the swimming pool, because if you wrap a car, that's actually governed by the vehicle code, not by a sign code. Mm-hmm. If you take the same wrap and you put it on a billboard and you pull it behind a trailer, that falls under the sign code, not the vehicle code. And so, again, it is like I said, it is the confluence of a lot of different laws and different areas of authority. But generally speaking, billboards that are pulled by a trailer are essentially prohibited. If it is a box trailer that is used for the purpose of, I'll just use as an example, delivering furniture, and they have, they wrap the side of it or paint the side of it, with the store, name of the store, and that's okay because, again, governed by the vehicle code, not the sign code.
So are there any other questions on this item? Having none, looking for a motion to waive the first reading and introduce the title only of ordinance number 1849.
I will make the move to waive the first reading and introduce by title only ordinance number 1849, ordinance of the City Council of the City of Oroville, amending Chapter 17-20 of the Oroville Municipal Code. And also, I would like to thank staff and the Planning Commission staff for putting this together and the rework of it. I know there's lots of hours of work on this, and I much appreciate that. So I make the motion.
Looking for a second?
I second.
Councilmember Goodson?
Yes.
Councilmember Riggs?
Yes.
Motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 no. The no is Hatley.
With that, we're moving on to council announcements and reports. Does anyone from this dais wish to announce anything or report anything? Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, just real quick. So COC met this past week, and the pit count will not be conducted this year. We're actually making a request that it be foregone due to the COVID-19, the continuation of what we're dealing with. So they're going to rely on 2019 numbers, and I'd ask that in that letter making that request, that consideration is given to Butte County because of 2 major wildfires, of course, the Camp Fire and then the North Complex Fire. Just as a point that I think that we're much more significantly impacted by the unhoused now than we were in that 2019 numbers. and that's not going to be accounted for. Why is that important? Because funding is tied to these PIT counts. And the PIT is an acronym, point in time, and the challenge is it takes a large group of people, several hundred people, to go out and count the homeless. Okay, let's just be clear with that. And we can't probably amass the adequate number of volunteers. Why is that important? Well, if we undercount, then we're just adding insult to injury, and that's the fear, that we'd actually undercount what's actually out there. And so it's kind of a conundrum, but nevertheless, this is where we are.
Thank you. Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, thank you. 2 items to mention. The project on Nelson Avenue, I believe it's called Prospect View, is going to be, I think, a first-time center where it's actually a housing project for a very difficult population that'll be run by behavioral health and a partnership with the Housing Authority and a number of other agencies here. So that'll be a great project to be coming forward here. I think it's 40 units, if I recall. And we had a special meeting with the Housing Authority that moved that project forward and committed considerable funds in that grant application. The other thing I wanted to mention today, I got a chance to go out and visit at the airport with the fire department. Mr. Chief Deal over there was kind enough to extend an invitation to see the new equipment that was just purchased, the compressed air foam unit and skid unit for replacement of the one that was utilized during the recent plane crash. And this replacement is a hugely efficient and effective device that won't cost near, maybe 6 times to recharge it, where the other one was very expensive to recharge. Plus, this particular one is a lot safer for personnel. And I think it's a great addition to the inventory of the fire department. So thank you. Good show. Good training. Everybody, I know, enjoyed the training for sure.
Councilmember Riggs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to report on 2 items. First, in relation to my appointment to downtown Oroville's Business Improvement District. The first one being that business members have expressed a few concerns regarding the streets and the intersections after the work that was done on the sewer system and the just the misrepair of those streets. I have spoken with staff and am encouraged that that will be addressed. However, I wanted to also bring that to this council's attention. In addition, there has been increased business owner activity and buy-in in revitalizing the Miners Alley between Myers and Huntoon, including painting on one side of that area in order to cover up some mixed matched paint from graffiti. And then also downtown Oroville is working to develop additional beautification campaigns and projects, as well as working towards Feather Fiesta Days and how they can create a socially distanced Feather Fiesta Day appropriate activities. The next item I wanted to speak about was a part of our consent calendar also is regards to the community meetings for grants for our parks. I just wanted to say that I did participate in one of those community meetings regarding Hewitt Park and Bedrock Park and was really encouraged by staff and the Parks Commission, as well as the consultant and public who commented on those things. So I just wanted to encourage the public and other council members to consider participating in the upcoming meetings, which include Wednesday, so tomorrow at 6 and Saturday at 1 p.m. And those are hosted over Zoom as well. Thank you.
Councilmember Goodson.
Yes, thank you so much. I just wanted to appreciate Councilman Smith. He is the primary on the continuum of care. I was assigned as the alternate. I believe that it's really important for Oroville to have that type of representation so often, and especially at the past meeting, much of the verbiage was embracing the concerns of the population in Chico. And sometimes the people just have to be made aware that Oroville is an integral part of Butte County, and that even though we have the same problems. We might not have the same degree, but we still have a voice of advocacy for those that are underserved and those that are unhoused. And I just appreciate having that type of representation from Mr. Smith. And whenever I can interject, I am happy to do so. Also, I attended the Arts Commission meeting. Very pleasant people to work with. And it was a special meeting in regards to ANOFA. So I'm looking forward to being a part of that committee and being introduced to some of the artistry that's in our community. And that is all.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'd like to comment on something. I got a phone call a couple weeks ago from some gentlemen that I know, and they've offered to donate the, we have an arch, iron arch that goes over Miners Alley, decorative arch, and they've offered to manufacture, install, completely donate, no cost to the city for the same arch going through all of the entrances in the Miners Alley. So I think that that will really add to the aesthetics of downtown, and I really appreciate Carl Von Bargen and Sean Pierce for that. Thank you very much. Very, very active members in the community. And I know they don't like a lot of attention, but they're going to get a little bit from us. So I'd like to thank those gentlemen. Okay, moving on to future agenda items. Is there anyone who wishes to see anything on the future agenda? Mr. Vice Mayor, you don't want to see him.
I already talked to Chief LeGrone about my wall.
Oh, did you?
I'm now naming it my wall.
Yeah.
There you go. I know, I like that.
Well, and I've got to tell you, my wife has been on me about that wall for 15 years. So you're going to have to compete with. Can we go S&S, Sandy and Scott?
Sure,
or
sure.
Scott and Sandy?
I'm actually a little, honestly, just, I guess, embarrassed for our city for the length of time it takes to put a wall up.
Yes. Well, there was a lot of housekeeping that needed to be done before we were able to.
I understand.
So
build that wall.
Build that wall. The no one else with future agenda items? Okay, administration reports. Mr. Lando. Nothing? Mr. DePaula. Nothing.
You're on.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Today, the Modern turned in the first set of apartments for the 5 affordable projects we have going. So the first one up here on Table Mountain was turned in today and is now entered into plan review. So
for anyone who can't hear Mr. DePaula because he's got such a low, sultry voice,
It's my
first set of
voice,
plans
right.
for the project up on Table Mountain Boulevard and Grand Avenue were turned in today. So we shall see building starting to happen there within a couple of months.
By late spring, probably May.
Late
is realistic,
spring, May.
That's 1 of 5. So
1 of 5.
yeah. So
How many units is in this first one?
80.
80?
Yeah.
Cool.
And then also, as you can see, Mavericks is moving along pretty good. They've got that scraped and cleaned, and that's pretty exciting. So
Good,
That's it.
thank you.
Thank you. Wes, did you have anything you want to say? No, sir. Don with a W?
I just wanted to update the council on the development impact fee report. We have received the final draft. Staff has reviewed it, and we will be bringing that back for the first public hearing, the second meeting in February. So anticipate that. Also, with our municipal services review, we are still receiving the departmental drafts. They're trickling in. We're making our reviews and comments, sending them back. So we're hoping to have that in the coming months as well. Hopefully by February, we should have that completed and brought to council.
Well, I got you up there. Can you give us just a community update on the municipal auditorium?
So yes, and I was waiting to get a final proposal back to repair some more dry rot that has been discovered on the exterior of that auditorium. So we are hoping to have that dry rot all done, repaired, stucco replaced, and then we can finish painting the exterior hopefully by mid-spring. We also have the interior repairs to make. The plans are near completion, so we can put those out to bid so that the restrooms can be updated because they've currently been demolished. So we'll put them back in ADA accessible manner with more stalls to handle more occupants of the building. Also, we are proposing to have wheelchair lifts at either side of the stage to accommodate any handicapped or accessible needs patrons at the auditorium. And we will be meeting with the YMCA on Thursday for a tour of the auditorium so they can the state representatives for California YMCA will come up and meet with Mr. Lagrone and myself to tour the auditorium so they kind of have their bearings on the capabilities of that building for their programs.
Thank you. Remind me, the showers that were there, those are gone, right?
The communal showers have been demolished, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank goodness.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, Councilmember Hatley.
Mic on here. Was there something, I'm trying to remember, didn't we have a problem with the, is it ATC building out by the airport? There was something,
There was
the
a
roof
roof.
was leaking or something. We were going to look into that.
That's
is
correct.
that resolved?
That is resolved. There was a roof drain that had leaves clogged, so it has a grid over the top of it, and leaves had clogged that. They just had compacted on top of it. Those have been cleared, and that issue has been cleaned up. So they cut out a section of drywall, dried out the interior framing, replaced the insulation, and that has been completely taken care of. There was another incident that recently took place where the water fountain, the piping components hidden within the shell of the water fountain had failed, and it caused another leak. So that is currently in process of being repaired, and the drywall is being replaced there as well.
At one time,
Mm-hmm.
on the back wall, where there was a back door on the parking lot there, it used to be all glass back there, a lot of it, and the water had rained a lot, and I don't know if we had something wrong with the